This is The Good Government Show.
How do we kind of encourage more service? How do we create a shared expectation of service among more young Americans? Walking away from kind of just complacency and allowing leaders to really have a set of tools where they can grapple with challenges and just kind of lean into it kind of courageously to make things happen. And realize that the politicians or the people that we interact with, they're humans too, and we have to treat them that way. Most people see government service as noble, and they're there to ultimately make things better for the people. So I think there's a lot of value in ongoing learning, even for current executives.
Here's something I didn't know. The U.S. Selective Service System is still going strong. All men over the age of 18 are required to register for the military. On this episode, we hear from the former director. We talk about military readiness and what it means to serve. Welcome to The Good Government Show. I'm Dave Martin. First, help us share the message of good government by liking us and sharing us where we are on your favorite social media. Make sure to review us and send our show everywhere. We all need to talk about good government. Joel Spangenberg is the former acting director of the U.S. Selective Service System. I learned a lot talking to him, mostly that the service was still in place. And I'll let him explain why this is important, especially now. Listen to what he says about serving in the military and what a military background can mean for those that do serve. Joel Spangenberg has a very impressive career in public service. His service started at the U.S. Naval Academy. He served as a nuclear weapons officer in the Navy. He served in the U.S. Senate as a staff member on the Homeland Security Committee. He was a special assistant in the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. This is an incomplete resume to be sure, but he has a long record of service. He's another one of those guys that work in government you may never have heard of, but he's one of the many that dedicate their careers to public service. Now he's a fellow with the National Academy of Public Administration and helping others improve government services. Listen to his thoughts on government, especially working in the Senate. And he has some interesting facts on who actually could be drafted should the need arise. That's all coming up next with Joel Spangenberg, former acting director of the U.S. Selective Service System. We have a new partner here on The Good Government Show, HelloNation. This is a new digital magazine that showcases the best of cities across the nation. We'd all prefer if good news traveled faster. At HelloNation, positive stories don't just get told, they get amplified. HelloNation helps businesses, leaders, and communities share positive stories that matter, building trust, credibility, and meaningful connection. Through professionally produced podcasts, digital features, and targeted distribution, HelloNation positions you as the answer regular folks are looking for, while expanding and scaling your digital footprint across the platforms that people trust. Good news deserves momentum. Your city or your business can help spread the word of good news across the nation. At HelloNation, they don't just have advertisers, they have advertisers. Editorial content from trusted community leaders and cities that are helping spread the good news. Let HelloNation lift you up and lead the conversation. Visit HelloNation.com to learn more. Once you wrap up this episode of The Good Government Show, give a listen to our friends over at Good News for Lefties. This daily podcast highlights news stories that show there's more good news out there. Other people in government are really trying to do the right thing. That's Good News for Lefties. Listen where you're listening now. Welcome to The Good Government Show. I'm happy to have with me Joel Spangenberg. He is currently the U.S. country head and vice president of U.S. government affairs for Core Power. But prior to that, you were the acting director of the U.S. Selective Service System, correct?
That's correct.
I did not know there was still selective service in this country.
Oh, yes, it is still there. And we have to help remind young men every day to remember to register.
What is the purpose of the U.S. Selective Service System?
Ultimately, selective service is there for the nation's defense. It's there to really provide a pool of extra personnel to DoD if there were to be a major war. And we hear things like the draft or conscription. That is part of their mission. So if there were a major conflict and the president and Congress required conscription, selective service would have to be there for that. In times of peace, selective service has to always remain ready. And that was a big focus of mine when I was there. That means things like reminding men to register, keeping our systems modernized, and doing the planning, training, and exercising so that we know with confidence we can deliver at really what could be the most dire time.
So, like I said, I grew up not during the Vietnam War era, but I'm younger than. But I remember the draft, and I remember burning your draft card. No draft. People running to Canada. They were all older than I was. But as far as selective service goes, I thought it ended with, Vietnam, the draft, and didn't have it anymore. Has this always been a requirement that people under a certain age have to register?
So it's actually a somewhat modern requirement, if you will. It does go back to at least during the Cold War. Now, there have been drafts in major conflicts in this century. So even World War I, there was a draft. World War II, there was a draft. And then throughout parts of the Cold War, and you mentioned all the way through Vietnam, there was a draft. And the draft ended in 1973, and it was replaced by the all-volunteer force.
Right.
Now, it's very important to note that even with the all-volunteer force, the draft was expected to still be available if the country should need it, because the all-volunteer force was not envisioned for massive warfare. And that's where things like selective service would come in if the country truly had to mobilize for a major war. And since Vietnam, and even before that, there hadn't been a major, war of the kind of level of something like a World War I or World War II. But it always seemed like it could happen again. So this was a big investment for the country in terms of just thinking ahead and making sure we had the systems in place. Big investment in the sense of thinking about it and establishing systems. Small investment in terms of resources on a yearly basis to make sure we could do this. But as long as we intended to do it, we needed to do it well. So we, if the draft could ever come back, we knew we had to do it well so the public could trust it.
A friend of mine who was a police chief for the New York City Police Department said, "You can't sharpen your sword once the battle has begun." So
true words.
You have to be ready. You have to be ready.
Absolutely.
We were talking a little bit before we turn the mics on, and I think the conversation was that 70% of all eligible men are not actually eligible for military service.
That's actually a really good point, and thanks for bringing that up. And I learned about that number when I was at Selective Service System, and it's really, and the way I look at it, 23% would meet 17 to 24-year-olds would meet the requirements to be able to serve in the military. And there are things like physical, medical, other sorts of items for that person. Criminal records, all that would be evaluated. So that means 77% of young people would not even be eligible to serve in today's military.
Is that a problem?
You really have to look at what the military needs. And I don't think I'm in a great place to say if it's a problem or not, but what I would argue, it highlighted to me that, even though 23% could serve, not everybody wanted to serve in the military.
Right.
And it really illuminated a kind of another path, which was, how can we help people think about the kind of service that would be very valuable for our country beyond just military service? How could we help other service organizations in government connect with young people who could use our systems? And we had been helping the Department of Defense for over 20 years with recruitment. We thought, hey, with that 77% of young people who just cannot serve, we should also help let them know about service opportunities using our system. How can we be really kind of a hub for service and really providing more value for the taxpayer by helping more young people serve in the government in different ways?
There are lots of programs around the world that people can participate in if they choose to get an education, be a teacher somewhere, have the government pay for something, be a doctor somewhere. And I know that in other countries, you have mandatory military service. How many of these things have been implemented in America, and how many of these things are people thinking about?
So that's a good point. So, number one, I've not been aware of the draft coming back, nor have I been aware of a truly national service mandate. But one of the things that has been really meaningful for me as I've thought about it, and this echoes what General Stanley McChrystal has talked about, is how do we kind of encourage more service? How do we create a shared expectation of service among more young Americans? So we look at programs like AmeriCorps, where they have helped place people into communities around the country. Same thing with Peace Corps. And these are young people who go overseas and they serve in very austere environments. And there are probably many other places, but those types of service could be really well suited to people. And when they come back into, off of that service and back into their communities, they bring new perspectives. They've worked with a wide variety of different people, and just like General McChrystal mentioned earlier today, they definitely feel like more like they're shareholders in government. They really do feel like they have more of a sense of ownership in the government as citizens, and I think that's very profound.
I should point out we're here at the National Academy of Public Administration at their national conference. General McChrystal was a speaker this morning. And what you asked him a question. What did you ask him? I
was asking really about that discussion I had with him on a couple of occasions, really to get into that, because I know it's been a time of profound change in government. But I always go back to the fact that, being able to have more service opportunities for young people does lend itself to a stronger country. And these, like we were just talking about, with people who really are bought into the country and democracy and helping, through their acts of citizenship, make our country stronger.
Do you feel like you made a difference in your 2 years with the Selective Service System in either making it more attractive or bringing more people in?
Well, of course, I'd like to think so. But, we were faced with a real challenge, right, when I showed up with registration rates. And, my vision working with the team was really to focus on readiness, registration, and management excellence. And the agency in the past few decades had really been focused on registration, and that's that registration rates. How many of the percentage of 18 to 25-year-old men who are required to have registered? And that number, unfortunately, had started falling before I showed up due to a change in law, which delinked registration from federal student aid. It used to be that you had to have been registered as a man to get federal student aid. That linkage was broken in late 2020. And then helpful items like having on the federal or the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA form.
Right.
There was a removal of the option to register for young men. So that actually cut into our registrations. And that would make up something like 20%. So we had to react to that. So I felt like we did a good job under the current legal authorities we had to try to address it. So trying to find out how we can reach more young men and remind them to register, but also create a new policy avenue. And we had worked on this with Congress to get national automated registration for young men so they wouldn't forget. And that really built upon great lessons learned in over 40 states and territories across the country where registration would happen, or there'd be an option for it to happen when a young man got his driver's license. So we're trying to make it easier and more effective.
So I hope we have some young people listening. I hope some high school students, perhaps, or college students. Sell them on the military.
Well, I'm actually very pro-military myself, and I count myself very fortunate to have served. If I can connect with any high schoolers out there, one thing I noticed was a deep desire to serve the country and to go push my limits. And that's what led me to want to try to get an appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy. And I was fortunate enough to go there and to have this opportunity to push myself. So I really feel like those opportunities to serve in the military will broaden your perspectives, will open up so many avenues in life, professionally and personally. And also the camaraderie is something that I think is second to none. The friendships that you make, the mentors that you gain will stay with you for your life. So I highly encourage people to consider a path of military service.
I was talking with the mayor of Pensacola, Florida recently, where I think 40% of the economy in Pensacola is Navy and military. And he was at a seminar encouraging people to hire veterans. What do veterans bring to jobs outside of the military?
Oh, you're making my day asking that question. I'm a proud member of the American Legion here, and a post in D.C., the Major General Donovan post, also known as Post 46. And I think veterans bring so much. They bring that management leadership perspective. They bring that sense of responsibility, that duty that care for others, and really, and you hear this in certain branches of the military. It's really the service over self that I think really does permeate the military and that culture, where you really do feel a concern for other people and you want to see your team succeed. I think that will ultimately help organizations outside of the military succeed too.
I looked a little bit at your resume, a nuclear surface warfare officer for the Navy for 6 years, Navy training, government oversight. You also worked as a staff assistant for the Veterans Administration. Just a whole career in public service. Why public service?
I don't know exactly what drew me to it, but my mom was a teacher for her career. And I think I saw the satisfaction she had in helping others succeed. And that had a powerful impact on me.
Your mom was a teacher?
She was, an elementary school teacher. And also having people around me who opened my eyes to the military. A relative of mine served in the Navy, and he was a commanding officer of an A6 squadron out of Whidbey Island. And then just experiencing that, also seeing a ship that he served on as the commanding officer, really opened my eyes to public service. So serving in the military. And then for whatever reason, I just thought it would be interesting to work in Congress, because I saw that as...
For whatever reason. I still don't know what it is, but there was a reason.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure what it was. But then when I got to the work in the Senate, I'd spent some time there, I realized the Senate was in many ways the crossroads of our democracy, where you had people from around the country coming there to serve and then also to talk with their elected officials. And you also had this institutional aspect of it where people would really try to find more durable solutions. It wasn't as partisan then, but certainly it still has some processes in place, like, that really do require a higher vote threshold to get things done. And I think that keeps that chamber particularly special. And I think it's really a great reflection of what our democracy can be.
As I said, we're at the National Academy of Public Administration. You just finished a talk about agile policy. What is that?
Well, I'm not an expert on agile policy.
You were sitting at the front. Come on.
And really, in all fairness, I was there to talk about my experience at Selective Service implementing it. But what I can tell you, I know there's going to be a great new report coming out from NAPA on agile policy. What really stood out to me, and I'm a firm believer in this. Policy ideas and policy development and passing policy, whatever it is, whether it's through the executive branch or even the most profound sorts of policy, that's law. It really doesn't go anywhere unless it's backed by great implementation. And I think having kind of an informed perspective on that throughout is important. My lessons at Selective Service, too, I think kind of connected with that, because we had the opportunity to shape what our direction would be, kind of our internal policy, and then focus on implementation. And we were able to use those agile tools. And first and foremost is really having an agile mindset. And what I would say what that looks like, it's a growth mindset. It's really just kind of recognizing that, hey, I'm not great yet, but I'll get there. It's really what Carol Dweck wrote about in a very fundamental book on learning, continuous learning and growth. And I see that, and I think if we embrace that in government and just know that, hey, we need to have a culture of experimentation.
Of being nimble, I think was the kind of my takeaway.
Nimble, iterative, thoughtful, risk-taking, which could lead to improvement, and walking away from kind of just complacency and allowing leaders to really have a set of tools where they can grapple with challenges and just kind of lean into it kind of courageously to make things happen. That's what spoke to me about it. And that really got into implementation on the other side. And I think the ideas that NAPA has kind of put forth, the training and focus that they're bringing to it is helpful. And you heard that they're training employees at Selective Service in agile methodology. They're training senior folks in government through their programs. I think there's a lot of potential there to really kind of encourage leaders to really have that set of tools to be even more courageous and cause more change where it's needed for improving things in government, to really build trust and drive more value for people.
So you've been a fellow here at the National Academy for 2 years. What have you been working on?
I would say agile government has been something I've been very interested in. And
so you are an expert, whether you think so or not.
I guess a little bit, but I've just been passionate about NAPA and just being in an organization like this where people are constantly learning and trying to help government be better and to serve the people better, deliver more value.
Which is good government.
It is good government. This is your show, and I think that's important. And I think that appeals, and really, I believe this really deeply, should appeal to whoever you are, whatever party you are in, assuming you believe in government, that we want good government. We want it to work better, and we need to work together to make it happen. And I think with even the NAPA Fellows, they're people from many different backgrounds, and I think that this is a really valuable group to be a part of to kind of keep moving forward no matter what happens politically.
And I don't know if you exactly said this, but I wrote in my notes from the conference I attended that you were speaking one of the experts at, was really what you're doing is you're gathering together people in government or people who were in government just to share best practices.
I mean, that's the essence of that. Yeah. And to drive it forward, like to help government continue to improve. And we would like to be resources to help them and to keep the dialogue going.
That was the easy part. Now we're going to get to the hard part.
Okay.
All right. The Good Government Show is sponsored by Our. That's OUR for Our Community. Get involved. We hear that all the time from government leaders. Our co-brands with your government's name and logo. Your staff and the people you serve are connected and part of your community. From any device, your members provide reliable data and meaningful feedback. Ask a question like, do we want more parkland or better homeless services? More engaged conversations come through the Our app. Visit Ourco, that's OURCO.com, and book a demonstration. After you get done with this episode, hear more good government stories with our friends at How to Really Run a City. Former mayors Kasim Reed of Atlanta and Michael Nutter of Philadelphia, and their co-host, journalist and author Larry Platt, talk with guests and other mayors about how to really get stuff done in cities around the nation. Check them out where you're listening now or through their nonprofit news site, thephiladelphiacitizen.org/podcasts. This is the hard part. Are you ready for the hard part?
I hope so.
I hope so too. These is some questions I ask everybody just to get to the heart of their philosophy about government.
Sure.
U.S. Naval Academy, U.S. Navy, and then the Selective Service acting director rather. Define good government. What is it?
A good government is, I believe, a government that is responsive to the needs of the people. Ultimately, it has to be accountable to them, and it has to feel like it delivers for them. And the employees in government really have to believe in that they're there for the right reasons to truly deliver for the American people.
If people are frustrated by government at the federal level or even at the local level, and they don't like what they're seeing and they don't like the policies that are coming out, what should they do?
I think they should do something like I do even here in Washington, D.C.
Join the Navy?
Well, I will back this up into an even more basic level. So,
okay.
I live in one of the neighborhoods here, and there are sometimes things that frustrate me as a local resident in D.C. And it could be a whole host of things. And one of my
Are you about to announce your city council campaign?
No, I'm about to mention my engagement with the city council member or D.C. council member, but it's caring. Every resident and citizen can care. I cared about something about the e-bikes, the bikes that go very quickly, and I saw some close encounters where somebody could have been hurt by young people who were on these high-powered bikes that are rental bikes going around town. And I shared that with the council member. It's important that people can speak up, share their thoughts in a respectful manner with an elected official. So our city council member, our DC council member. So mine is Charles Allen.
Okay.
And, getting a response from him and engaging in a dialogue. So I think that's incumbent upon people at all levels of government, and realize that the politicians or the people that we interact with, they're humans too, and we have to treat them that way. And ultimately, if we're complaining about government, guess what? We have ourselves to blame, because we are those who get to elect people. And we have to continue to engage with our elected officials to help them continue to make government better. It is a journey, and it has to include all of us.
You told me what drew you to public service, what kept you in public service, and Who inspires you? Do you have a political hero or a hero in government?
It's hard to say what kept me there. I think it's just the nobility of the mission. I love the ability to serve, and I love the ability to try to create things and help things work better. There have been so many wonderful people that have kind of been mentors for me or illuminated a great path in government. I mean, you could probably tell the nuclear Navy in my background. One person in particular that stands out just looking back in the 20th century was Admiral Hyman Rickover. And this was he was a giant of engineering. He was the one who delivered the nuclear Navy. And if you think about what the nuclear Navy meant for this country, it actually undergirds our success in many ways. It gives us, freedom of navigation of the seas. It allows us to really have the strongest naval power in the world. So we have submarines that can operate better than other countries' submarines that allow us to have more global strength. And also with the aircraft carriers are nuclear powered, that they can provide that presence. So thinking about people like Admiral Rickover, even people who've continued to serve, like President Jimmy Carter, he was a nuclear sailor and a great humanitarian. He was. And I've had so many other leaders that I've been impressed with.
Was he not the first Naval Academy graduate to be president?
I think that's right. Yeah. And I mean, there's so many great leaders out there, and I've seen some as well. Admiral Frank Caldwell at Naval Reactors, he was the head of NR when I was there. The administrator of NNSA, Lisa Gordon Haggerty. People who are truly dedicated to making government better. And I've really admired that. And another person, he passed away maybe about a decade ago, was Senator Daniel Akaka. And I had a chance to be on his committee staff.
From the Hawaii Senator?
From Hawaii. Yeah. And just seeing somebody like him who built a great relationship across the aisle with Senator George Voinovich on that committee and the staffs below them. So I was on one of the staffs. We would work very closely with Senator Voinovich's staff in a productive manner to not find gotchas in government, but to find real opportunities to improve and ask the people who appeared before our committee what we could do better, and then try to find ways to help empower them.
To get to the Naval Academy, it's something you have to decide early on in high school that this is something you want to do. But did you see yourself with a career in public service? Were you president of the student council?
Nothing like that.
No.
If anything, I was a good student, loved baseball. I started to get into rowing a little bit in high school.
Navy crew team, you said.
Yeah,
yes.
I did end up rowing at the Naval Academy on the heavyweight crew team. I would actually say it was just by happenstance I heard about the Naval Academy, and it was during my I believe my junior year of high school, and it just something about it stuck with me. Hearing the tales of what it looked like in a challenging environment. Where there was a real opportunity to go serve. And maybe I'm kind of from that tail end of the Top Gun generation where I remembered watching that movie, and also my relative who had served in the Navy. That all had a profound influence. But I haven't told you this, but my parents went to UC Berkeley in the 60s. So,
oh my.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a
how did they feel about you going to Naval?
Initially, my mom wasn't super excited about it.
I could see that.
And my dad, I think he
came around.
He understood it. But by the time I was a senior at the Naval Academy, what we call a firstie, my parents had become the Washington State Parents Club co-presidents for the Naval Academy. And I felt like they had gone on more ship rides than I had since I'd been at the Academy, because they kept getting offers to go visit different ships and subs. So yeah, I think that all those different factors somehow seem to work together in a favorable way.
Having been in government for so long at different levels, what would you like people to know about the people who are in government?
I would say that most people in government really are there to make a difference. They really like the idea of creating something new, making something happen. And even if they're not super creative, they might want to make things better. So I think if there are ways we can continue to engage people in government, make sure that they feel respected, valued, that they belong there, and you can just continue to find ways to motivate them and just be positive. I think that they'll rise to the occasion. It does seem easy for people to blame government, and I've already touched on that. I think you have to point our fingers back at ourselves because we're the ones to blame.
So when the city councilman sees you coming, does he go, "Oh, is it that guy again?"
No, fortunately, I think he's been very good about working with me. But I would say that, but I really do believe that. I think most people see government service as noble, and they're there to ultimately make things better for the people.
When you tell people that you are the acting director of the Selective Service System, I'm sure you get a reaction. But what was the best part of the job?
Really, there were a few parts of it that I liked. I really liked just being able to go talk to the different people in the agency and learn more about what they did and kind of find ways to help get things done. And, being a smaller and independent agency, I felt like we had more inherent agility. But what I also loved is they had done some great things, and they got things even started before I got there, and helping them do that. And one of the things was the Technology Modernization Fund that existed in government, where Selective Service was one of the first agencies to really dip into that fund, a government-wide fund, to help them modernize their system. And just to see the excitement of the IT professionals in our organization really seizing that opportunity to help drive our organization to be better with our systems. And then other things that I liked was just the opportunity to acknowledge people who had served before. So being able to go to Arlington Cemetery and acknowledge General Hershey, who had come before me at Selective Service, and his service to the country, and to just acknowledge those who had been drafted and who had served was very important and profound to me. I definitely feel a deep connection with the veterans in this country, and I felt it there, and a deep responsibility. And if the country ever needed us, I felt very deeply that we had to be ready. We could not just say, we need to start planning now. I had to be able to look people in the eye and say, we are ready. We've been training. Mr. President, we're ready. Congress, we're ready. Guess what? Those moms and dads across America that could be sending their son into harm's way, I need to be able to assure them that we're ready and we're being responsible.
That's a heavy responsibility.
It is.
Yeah. I have to ask, this is something I usually ask mayors, but I'll just go straight to it. Annapolis, a graduate living in Annapolis, crab cakes or soft shell crab? What's your favorite dish down there?
Crab cakes every day. Soft shell crab, I'm okay with it. I grew up on the West Coast, so in the Seattle area, we had Dungeness crab. So that was the kind of crab I liked. But I also remember one of the great drinks in Annapolis was at the Sly Fox. I'm not sure if it's there anymore. They had the orange crushes. So
that's the Maryland drink.
Yeah,
yes.
And I definitely love Annapolis. It's a great community. The people there are wonderful, and I just love the whole feel of the town, from Annapolis, St. John's College, the Capitol, the boating community. It's a really wonderful place.
So you were a Navy man. Are you a sailor? You go out fishing? Do you have a boat somewhere yourself?
No.
Do you get into the water?
No, my only nautical escape is every so often I'll get together with some of my friends who rode on the crew team, and we'll try to go up and race in the head of the Charles, which is a huge regatta up in Boston.
Yes, it is.
So we'll try.
Do you still do it?
Every so often. This year I didn't actually do it,
okay.
But I think I might try again.
They have an old boys division for the head of the Charles?
Thank goodness they do, because the young ones are fast, but don't think the older ones aren't fast, because we've been in races there where their boats stacked with former national team rowers and Olympians, even in our age category.
And how have you done?
I think we could have done a little better,
okay.
But we row it more recreationally. But we also know some people still take crew very seriously after all these years, and we appreciate that.
This is the Good Government Show. We always try to end it on a good government project. In all your work throughout your many years of service to the nation and to government, tell me about a project that, was a fun project that's kind of special to you.
One actually goes back to my time at the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I was the special assistant to Deputy Secretary Scott Gould. And he is truly a visionary leader. And in fact, I should have also mentioned him earlier in terms of mentors and great leaders I've seen in government. What we were able to do together was to create kind of this first ever training program, really I'd call learning program, for current senior executives called Leading Edge. And this was about 2012. And we were taking private sector best practices And we had worked with the White House to actually get support for it through the President's Management Council. So we ended up creating a program to help really bring current executives together across government for the first time, and they could hear from top leaders in government.
Sharing best practices,
even having some projects they can work on, government performance projects. And then, that was the start of a good thing. And I think over time that program kind of moved to OPM, and they actually also used it to develop brand new senior executives. But I'd love to see that come back, because I think there's a lot of value in ongoing learning, even for current executives. We all have something to learn. I think even if I get it right, it was, I think Aristotle or Socrates himself even acknowledged that how little he knew late in life. And that's true of all of us. We just have to have the humility to understand that.
Well, as a fellow here at the National Academy, I'm sure you can figure out a way to make that happen.
Yes.
That'll be your next mission after Agile Government. Joel Spangenberg, the current U.S. country head and vice president of U.S. Government Affairs at Core Power. We didn't even get a chance to talk about that, but that'll be the next conversation. And the former acting director of the U.S. Selective Service System. It was a pleasure having you on. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Hey, David, it was a pleasure to have this opportunity to talk with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Want to hear more about good government? Check out another show I host, Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. I host the show with Brad Kavanaugh, Mayor of Dubuque, Iowa, and the immediate past president of the Iowa League of Cities. Together, we talk to leaders in Iowa cities. We talk about what works and what good government looks like in Iowa. Join us right here where you're listening now. That's Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. It was called the War to End All Wars, but it didn't. 3 royal cousins, all kings, one from England, one from Germany, and one from Russia, blundered their way into a war, a completely avoidable war that left millions dead in the trenches across Europe. Good Government Show executive producer Jim Ludlow details the blunders, mistakes, and bluster that started World War I that didn't end all wars. The book, The Royal Cousins, details the events and creates an alternative history. Imagine if World War I never happened. It didn't have to. Just read it yourself. Download the book today on Amazon. It's just 99 cents and a timely look at history. If you're between the ages of 18 and 24, I hope you got a good reminder to register for Selective Service. Don't forget. I like what he had to say about creating a more agile and nimble government, a government that can adapt to changes quickly. And he had a great seat to really see how the Senate operates, the crossroads of government, he called it. And I looked it up. So far, Jimmy Carter is the only National Academy graduate to become president. Here's a little more presidential trivia. West Point can claim 2 presidents, Generals U.S. Grant and Dwight Eisenhower. Well, that's our show. Thanks for listening. Please like us and share us with your friends and review us right here where you're listening. And check out our website, goodgovernmentshow.com, for extras. Help us keep telling stories of good government in action everywhere. Join us again for another episode right here. I'm Dave Martin, and this is The Good Government Show. The Good Government Show is a Valley Park production. Jim Ludlow, Dave Martin, that's me, and David Snyder are the executive producers. Our show is edited and produced by Jason Stershic. Please subscribe, then share us, and like us and review us. That's the best way to make sure we're able to keep telling these stories of our government working for all of us. Then listen to the next episode of The Good Government Show.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group,